It's time to check in with La Rochelle head coach Ronan O'Gara. Ronan, how are you getting on?
Owen, how you doing? Great. Hi, Shane.
A couple of weeks now since we've last been chatting. I think it was the build-up to the top 14 quarter-final, and now we're enough defeat to Toulouse, 33 points to 28 on the day. Was your sense that your tails were up going into that game, or in hindsight was it a sense that it's actually quite difficult to get players to the correct level after such an amazing result a few weeks previous?
No, I think you'd have to be disappointed with the way the top 14 away game went to Toulouse, but the damage is probably done in our league form throughout the season. I think the key takeaway from this season would be you look who's in the final. It's Castres and it's Montpellier. Castres finished first, Montpellier finished second, and having that actual week off just gives you a huge advantage compared to the other teams, because you essentially get a week to freshen up, and the French teams have obviously played a difficult quarter-final the week previously, which, I mean, no matter how you try to decipher it, it does have an impact on freshness, especially if you're going 13 weeks in a row. And then other, I suppose, French teams, some of them play the top 14 like their lives depending on. A few teams probably have a go at both competitions.
Be very interested in this, if we could invent like a Tri-Nations-esque tournament for yourselves, Toulouse and Leinster, and see who would actually come out on top of that with everybody playing each other week in, week out, because it seems that there is like just this incredible sequence of results and incredible games that have come up between those three teams, which obviously sit near the summit of European rugby right now.
Yeah, it would be it, because it's they take a life of their own. You look at how Leinster, I suppose, completely destroyed Toulouse in the Aviva, sea of blue on a fast surface. But I suppose the asterisk around that is that they had 100 minutes in the legs from the previous Saturday. They had a week's travel, and Leinster were probably on fire that day. In Marseille, it's a one-off game when we play Leinster. It's probably more commanding performance by us, shall I say, at home in the semi-final the year previously, when it was a soulless ground with no supporters. So it's hard to kind of judge in that, but in terms of rugby content, we probably physically had a little bit more dominance in that game than we would have in the final, I would think. And then you look what Toulouse do to La Rochelle. There's no doubt about it. It's a bogey team. For us, the scoreline really flatters us, 33-28. We weren't in the game, but I think what should be probably remarked upon is that the boys never, I suppose, threw in the towel. They fought in the end and coming up 5 points short. We probably had previewed that if we stay with them, we win the game. But if you give them a 19-point lead, it's too much, because I think we are probably fitter than them. But at home, they were hurting, I suppose, from their exit, and that's what happens in these big games.
Are you on holidays at the moment, Ronan, or is that just the back garden?
You're trying not to break a smile. I can see on Skype. I'm on holidays. I wish it was my back garden.
Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Ibiza. First time ever.
Oh, nice. What's that like?
Yeah. So there's obviously two sides to the island, and the family side of it is to be recommended. It's beautiful.
But you're on the other side, obviously.
No. I'm good at winging it, but that would be taking it to a whole new level if I was to perform this morning and not slur my words if I was on the other side. So no, I'm concentrated and just taking a bit of time out, recharge the batteries, and go back at it at the end of July.
Are you thinking about the season that just went by at times like this, Ronan? Are you trying to kind of like soak in what happened in the European campaign in particular, or do you just try and plug out completely? Because I guess it's like this balance. Sports people always say, we don't appreciate the great moments enough, and I guess that there's never time essentially to try and soak it all in.
I think when I watched, for the first time, when I watched Leicester win the Premiership, it dawned on me, I suppose, what La Rochelle had achieved. You look at the joy Leicester got from the domestic competition. That was us at European Cup stage. I just think it's a fairy tale story in the fact that you win a European Cup with the last play of the game. It's very, very rare that happens, and I suppose I was head of a coaching team that made that happen, and that's, I think, feeling you get for 5 minutes after the final whistle is very, very powerful, and it makes the kind of 10 years of questioning why you're doing this and why you want to do this. It just all comes together, and that moment is very, very powerful when you can share it with your family, your brothers. It was amazing. Marseille, the soccer stadium, it's a mythical stadium, and I suppose that memory now is ingrained. But you got to move on. It's next game now. But you'd be foolish not to be grateful and not to reflect upon that. And then the flip side of that is, how can you go from that to driving on to having an attack on the domestic competition as well.
I guess then the contrast between that and a player and somebody who would be playing test rugby is that at this point of the year, regardless of all the success that you might have had during the season, is that you're thinking straight away summer tour. If you're an Ireland player right now, even if you've won silverware, you're thinking, right, okay, the All Blacks are next up. And maybe as a player, as I say, you just have that, you just don't have any time to kind of like bask in the glory of what you might have achieved, because it's constantly on to the next thing in this rugby calendar.
Yeah, it is. And I would say for the first time in a long while, there's a bite to this summer tour that may not have been considering, I suppose, the form of the provinces in terms of Ulster, probably a lot more consistent in their performances. Munster underperforming. Leinster would be disappointed with how, I suppose, the end of their season is. Connacht producing a lot of quality players. You mix that into the Irish pot, and you're going to New Zealand. The one thing that will be exposed in New Zealand will be a fragile mentality. So I suppose the top 2 inches are going to be absolutely crucial for the Irish team to, I suppose, optimise what they want out of it for the next month, because looking from afar, you would think that it's probably, this is the start of the World Cup. It has shades of England going to, I think, New Zealand in 2002, when they kind of, under Woodward, when they obviously identified that they had to win a test away from home before they were going to go on to win a World Cup. So obviously Ireland are a little bit behind that in terms of, the superpowers at the minute probably are France, South Africa, and I think you always have to respect New Zealand because they're very good at peaking for World Cups. So from Ireland's point of view, it's a tour packed with opportunity for everyone on it at different stages of their career, because I think if you perform in New Zealand, you get an awful lot of credit and respect, because there's no uncertainty in terms of, is this player capable of thriving under the cauldron of high pressure test rugby. You will find out in the next 5 games.
Ronan, like you referenced 2002 there, and like I know probably heading into that year, New Zealand were a dominant force as well. 97 years, I think, was the last time Ireland had beaten them for one thing. Like, I remember reading different places that, even since then, and it's hard to believe it's 20 years on, about, yourself coming up against Jonah Lomu in that match. And interestingly as well, like I know that was especially the game in Dunedin, the 15-6 defeat. I remember you talking about the yellow ball that was used in that game. And sometimes these are the small margins that can be off-putting for a kicker like yourself on a day like that? And I think you talked about sheets of ice as well on the ball that were kind of putting you off. Like, what are your memories of that particular game and that particular day in Dunedin?
Well, what strikes me straight away from listening to your commentary is that's a great bunch of weak excuses in terms of there were sheets of ice on the ball. It was a yellow ball known as a pig, but you know what I mean? What did they say about a bad toolsman, isn't it? Or a bad craftsman blames his tools. So, like, that jumps out at me straight away. So I need to correct that straight away. And the fact that it was opportunity, but that's another example of not being able to handle the pressure. Those games were there to be won, but whatever stage of my mental development, I wasn't able to get us over the line. And that happens. I think you learn from it and you become better. And then hopefully 3 years later, you probably found the benefit of succumbing on that tour to have a better result at the end of the day. But I think for people that probably haven't travelled to New Zealand, it's very, very different mentality to touring anywhere else. Maybe South Africa is similar. But they eat, sleep and drink rugby in New Zealand, and everyone has an opinion on the game. And their greatest strength is that every boy and girl wants to be a Black Fern or an All Black. That's the dream. You know, there's none of this, I want to play football for Dublin or for Kerry, or I want to play soccer for Ireland, or I wouldn't mind being a tennis pro or a golf pro or have a go at rugby. Over there, it's very, very simple. The dream is, and everyone chases it, and when you look at it as an outsider in there, you're like, wow, this guy could make a great career for himself in Europe if he was to chase that dream and probably set up his family. But their I wouldn't say ignorance, but their inner desire to be an All Black has to be commended. It's so powerful, and is such a strong asset for keeping them based in New Zealand.
Like I mentioned Jonah Lomu there, and probably he's more than just an excuse. He's a proper excuse. Like you can certainly use that one and get away with it. Like I remember you talking about on that tour specifically 20 years ago, you know, trying to hang on to his bootlaces, and you probably tried to do anything you could to try and stop Jonah Lomu, the late great Jonah Lomu. But when you saw that man running towards you, like what was going through your head, Ronan?
It's actually it's incredible to think actually that two people of such different builds could be on the pitch at the same time. But he had such a caring heart, and he was such a good guy that he obviously was a competitor. He just wanted to get over the gain line. But like, as he was kind of busting through you and kneeing you in the head and getting you out of the way, he'd nearly kind of carry you with you and place you gently so you wouldn't get crushed by his fall. So, yeah, geez, I remember him, and you remember Twigamala, Inga the winger, like some incredible species of players to produce, obviously from the islands down there as well. So it's great memories, obviously, great memories from playing against such special players that have unfortunately passed on.
My cat would be able to tell the players all about what it's like facing that sort of fearsome All Black this summer as well. Can I ask about that O2 tour as well, Ronan? Like, is that a rough experience for you as a young out half?
O2, I'm after mixing up. I was talking about England going to England. What year was that? That was the 01, so there was 2000, yeah? No, it was 03 World Cup.
It was 03 World Cup. So Ireland go to New Zealand in 02, play there twice, lose the first one narrowly, lose the second one pretty healthily. You start both tests. You get taken off for Humphreys, I think, in the first test, and it's just.
When did England play New Zealand?
It could have been the same summer potentially, because it was only two tests.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not
100% sure. Don't take my word for it.
No, I'm not mixing up the years though, isn't it? It was because they made that was a big statement for them.
Yeah, going into the 2003 World Cup. So they had a New Zealand go to a tour there in 1998. They go to a tour there again in 2003 and 2004. Yeah, and then there's an autumn international in 02, which they end up winning, and then they beat them 15-13 on the 14th of June 2003 in Wellington. So it's actually the same year as the World Cup, and then a win in the Northern Hemisphere the previous year. So it's back-to-back wins for England, which bring them right into a World Cup.
Yes, so just to show they could do it, you know.
Yeah. From Ireland's perspective, though, was that something that you were trying to do in 02? You know, what is it, like 15 months out from a World Cup? We got to show that we can go down there and actually beat them. No,
honestly, that wouldn't have been the mindset back then. No, but obviously, you know, it wasn't as if it was a Sunday pub team either on. You know, we had some really classy players with a huge ambition on our team going down there, and the goal was to win a test, most definitely, and we saw no reason why we wouldn't win a test. And I think performances will show that we knocked on the door, but we didn't kick the door down. So that's what happens in those games, be it from missing goal kicks or not executing under pressure. But we most definitely had, over the years, numerous opportunities to win test games in New Zealand.
How formative can that be for a young out half, that experience? Because what we're probably going to see over the next couple of weeks is Harry Byrne getting meaningful minutes for Ireland. And you know what, it may be next Wednesday. He may start against the Maori, and maybe he won't get meaningful minutes in the tests if Carbery and Sexton are fully fit and firing. But that pressure cooker that he might be thrown into over the next couple of weeks, and this question actually probably pertains to Carbery as well, how formative can these 3 tests be for those young out halves?
Oh, this is game-changing territory, I would think. This is the acceleration that a young 10 needs. If he's able to, I suppose, show glimpses of form, yes, he'll make mistakes, but is there enough opportunity to grow this guy with a World Cup 15 months away? The upside for Harry Byrne is absolutely huge. This guy should be incredibly excited about what the next 6 weeks entails for him, because it's essentially, you know, I think being an ex-player and a coach too, there's so much only you can derive from training. What happens in the game scenario is just so powerful and leads to whole new opportunities for him. This is something where all the shackles could be completely thrown off, and within a space of 4 months you could be looking at a completely redefined young out half capable of taking the world on.
What can you say for certain right now about Harry Byrne, Ronan? Because it feels that there's a lot of things that are uncertain and a lot of things that I guess people are seeing in training and are being reported. But what can you say for certain right now about him and what he will bring to Ireland this summer if he plays?
I can say with certainty that I'm not in a position probably to give an accurate account of how he plays and who he is as a person. You know, I think I read that he started 4 games as an out half this season, which is obviously completely undercooked.
Yeah.
But the training environment in Leinster with all the internationals and with excellent coaching is a great launching pad. What he needs now is meaningful games, but is the step from URC potential average games to the Maori to a test game the formula to set him up to succeed? I would have my doubts about that, but if there is a massive burning desire in this guy to run Ireland's attack for the next 10 years, this is the opportunity now.
Who you start?
More so in training, when he gets the opportunity to go against the test team, that will probably highlight to the coaches whether he's good enough to start in the Maori game. But for me, it can change very quickly. If he shines in training, he goes well in the Maori game, Ireland are in a position where they need to understand their depth at out half, and there's 4 out halves for me on the tour, because this guy Frawley is incredibly exciting and interesting, and I think if you want to play the game with tempo and with width, I think he's a great five to have in midfield. But maybe you're looking after the 50-minute mark for that as well. Does he cover the 10, 12, 15 axis, and you have scrum half Frawley and one more outside back as your replacement for a test game.
Yeah, it's
But
going to be.
people would say Carberry does exactly the same. He does exactly so, but he needs to be in form.
It's going to be very interesting. It all gets underway in 6 days' time with that Maori game anyway, and then the first test on Saturday week. Just one last thing before we let you go, Ronan. That 0-2 test series, I'm not sure if you remember, but Scott Robertson was at number 8 for both of those tests for the All Blacks. I think he just showed every coach in the world up once again on Saturday morning by his breakdancing routine in the rain on the pitch after their great win in Super Rugby. Why haven't we seen a Ronan O'Gara dance at full time after winning a championship?
No, because that's his dance, that's his gig. That's not for me. I don't have that talent, unfortunately. I'd love to give it a crack, but that's not me.
Yeah, it sounds like you're actually you're angry about it that you don't have the talent.
Hidden in all of this is the unbelievable achievement of a 6-peat. I mean, that seems to be secondary to his breakdancing. I don't think he gets anywhere near the credit he deserves to mastermind that. And I think for people who saw that, I've never seen such a one-sided final in a game of rugby. They completely demolished, destroyed the Blues, and it was a masterclass.